And I think he might be better at it than Rudy. Like, I think he might be better equipped to handle it than Rudy Gobert. Maybe not. I'm not really sure. We'll see how it plays out, presuming Kristaps comes back and he's good. But like, they need somebody that can just deter some of those lobs. And like the Celtics, they have the point of attack defenders that if Luka and Kyrie are working their way in there and KP is in that drop and they're waiting for that pocket to open up above to throw the alley oop, they can make life uncomfortable. They can poke out the ball. Like I think the Celtics can probably handle that action better than anybody else in the NBA can.
Celtics Beat is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
What's up, everyone? We have an NBA Finals edition of Celtics Beat here on the CLNS Media Network. Welcome. It's great to be with you. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti. I know sometimes you have just the one of us. There was no way you weren't going to get both with the finals coming up here. And of course, we have Jared Weiss from The Athletic, who at one point in time also hosted episodes of Celtics Beat. So it's nice to really bring the trio together to dissect and to anticipate what is to come in front of us. Boston against Dallas. I think we can all agree this is the very popularly known Kristaps Porzingis Bowl. That's what everybody is talking about. The fact that Porzingis played for both teams, and how is anything else possibly at the center of this matchup? Oh, there's that Kyrie Irving guy. Yeah, we're going to get into that, obviously. But the finals begin, as you know, on Thursday. And so it's sort of the countdown until that. And this is a spread out series, you know, for people that were thinking, as I kind of was just intuitively, oh, we've got every other day kind of thing. It's going to be games, you know, fast and furious. Not the case. Oftentimes, 2 days between games, plenty of travel allowed for these teams as well. So NBA Finals, if we get the long series, a lot of people are anticipating are going to be part of our lives for much of the month of June. The question is, who is going to win? Jared, how are you, buddy? Welcome.
I'm ready for it. This is going to be fun.
So it is going to be fun. Anyone who is a regular listener or viewer of this show on the CLNS YouTube page knows, and Ev, I mean, correct me if I'm misrepresenting this. I don't think I am. Knows that I took the Heat lightly. I took the Cavaliers lightly. I took the Pacers lightly. I really didn't think either of them, you know, or any of the three of them were going to put up much of a fight against the Celtics. And while the Pacers, you could certainly say game to game, absolutely did, it was still a sweep. You know, sweep is a sweep. And so, you know, ultimately Boston really did what it needed to do through three series. I look at this Mavericks team and maybe it's the Luka and Kyrie of it all, you know, the top endedness of it, but I like that supporting cast quite a bit as well when healthy, and we presume that Derek Lively is going to be out there after getting kicked in the back of the head and neck repeatedly during that last round against the Timberwolves. This is a team that, while I do still believe, guys, that Boston is understandably the heavy favorite and should win, and this should be a 5 or 6 game series, I don't think it's going to be an easy one. I think that Dallas is, you know, it put up more of a fight certainly against Minnesota than I anticipated. I thought Oklahoma City was going to beat Dallas in the second round. So this is a team that I have sort of kind of been wrong about all the way through. What is your just initial read, Jared, on what to expect in this series?
I disagree that this will be a 5 game series. Like, I think this should be a 6 or 7 game series. One of the things that Dallas is really good with that is that we've seen throughout this postseason run, Boston has been trying to take away threes. Joe Mazzulla has been harping on 3-point shot distribution and wanting his team to have a huge advantage in the number of threes attempted. And Dallas is so good at being able to create those opportunities in ways that the Celtics can't really take away. And, you know, when Luka and Kyrie are getting downhill, they're usually able to get deep into the paint, get to that floater range, and then their options are lob over the top to a 7-footer or kick out to the corner. And they're just so good at creating those looks. And so, you know, the Celtics could just gift them those floaters and take away those other passing opportunities, but it's Kyrie and Luka, so they're going to score 75 points apiece if you give them every floater. So this team isn't really a team you can necessarily solve mathematically and strategically in the way that these other teams Celtics have gone against have been able to do. And so the variance is there for Dallas to be really hot shooting the ball and actually make this a really competitive series.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think what's going to be really interesting for Boston is the Dallas offense is going to be a little different than what they've played throughout the postseason. I think a lot of people, when they refer to Dallas, talk about Luka and Kyrie ad nauseum easily. But Jared, like, one of the things I think it's lost in the dust is the vertical spacing they get. Like the lively Gafford lobs to the rim is nothing that Boston has not seen anything like this yet. There was no Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley I thought was more of like maybe a low post guy than maybe an above the rim kind of guy in that series. I felt like in the previous one, Bam has given Boston fits in that capacity in years past. I don't think it was as big of a deal in their opening round series with Miami. The lob threat to me, like, this is a two-pronged thing to me. One, the lob threat is going to be really interesting how Boston defends that. And then the corner threes that Dallas can generate is also kind of interesting to me. Boston notoriously, this has been a stat everybody's spewed out, and what's been interesting to me is they haven't gone a little bit further back. Boston teams, basically since Brad Stevens has got to Boston, has done a really good job of limiting corner threes and just trying to keep everything in front of them. This is a Dallas team that's really efficient at getting that shot. So to me, how does Boston defend the corner three? How do they defend the lob game? That's the two biggest questions I have for Boston going into this thing, Jared. I don't know about you.
Yeah, there's that. The other funny thing is I think Boston has given up like the lowest free throw attempt rate for defensively like ever in playoff history.
Hmm.
It's like nobody has gotten to the line against them, and Luka is someone who can just manufacture fouls, right? And so it adds two things to the mix here. It's one, just getting more easy attempts, and then it's also Celtics haven't dealt with foul trouble at all in this postseason run. Like, one of the things where they haven't had any real attrition is it's been really rare guys have gotten into foul trouble, and it's disrupted their sub patterns. And so, I still am trying to figure out how you do the matchups here. Like, putting Jrue on Luka, I think seems like it makes sense at first blush. That seems like the most obvious of like a guy that can handle the strength, probably won't be able to just get pushed out of the way at the point of attack. It can still smartly contest him. That seems like it makes the most sense. Also, Jrue Holiday is the best perimeter defender in the NBA, probably another reason why that would make sense. But then you think about how good Kyrie Irving is attacking closeouts. That's like a lot of his offense comes from he's so smart and patient when he gets the ball swung to him on the elbow of waiting until the closeout gets to him and then just kind of slipping right by them and getting deep in the paint. And I think one thing that Jrue is amazing at is he's so good at quick early closeouts while staying on 2 feet and being able to handle that drive and then still steer the drive away. So, like, do you just throw your other guys at Jalen and make sure Jrue is kind of there just to put out all these fires with his closeouts and not let Dallas get deep dribble penetration? Because as soon as Dallas gets the ball inside the paint, like, the alley-oop is immediately in play. Like, Luka had a play in the last game, I think against Minnesota, where he's coming down in transition. He sees Derrick Jones at like half court and just throws the alley-oop while Derrick Jones is still behind the 3-point line. Like, their anticipation is incredible. And so the Celtics have to be super cautious and disciplined on not running themselves out of rotation, because as soon as Dallas hits the paint, like, that play could be over really quickly.
Quick break to tell you today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in, folks. Get in all the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hopes knowledge into some serious cash. And Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that if your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. And right now for basketball, that's huge. Like, Cade Cunningham got like scratched before the game, 10 minutes prior to the game. And all I saw on the internet was everybody melting down over this Cade Cunningham designation. Well, guess what? Prize Picks has you covered in case of that. And Prize Picks is now the official daily fantasy sponsor of CLNS. And thanks to our new partnership, our listeners get a sweet new deal to sign up with Prize Picks. Just download the app, use the promo code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 after you download the app. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
I'm oversimplifying this from a matchup and overall defensive strategy perspective. So understand that as I say it, because I could just envision, either or both of you, sort of shaking your heads at this. But, thinking back throughout what we've seen so far in the playoffs, I think that the Celtics, they were perfectly content to let Bam do whatever he wanted in round one. It's let's slow down the supporting cast. I think in the second round, at least, pre Mitchell getting hurt, it was kind of the same strategy with him. Then he went down and it was okay, whether it's Garland or somebody else. We're gonna like the one guy, he can do his, we're gonna try and contain everybody else. The Pacers got a little trickier in that Halliburton went down, but I certainly think in those last couple of games it was all right. Like Nembhard is going to be the focal point of that offense. He's going to facilitate, he's going to score, he's going to put up his big numbers, his big stat line. But again, the other guys, we need to at least attempt to kind of stifle or I use the word contain. I'll use it again. In this one, especially when you think back to the regular season meetings. And I know there were a long time ago, one in January, one in March, both won by the Celtics, one in an absolute blowout. The other was 9-10 points. So Boston won both of those games. Rosters were pretty similar in one of those matchups. But, I think what does jump out is Luka was Luka, right? He had 2 triple doubles, 1 massive triple double. I would fully expect Luka is going to have a great series. Luka is going to be Luka. I think Joe, and you know him better than I do, obviously, Jared, and you talk to him on a regular basis. But I sort of, if we're to attempt to get inside his head a little bit, I think Joe, would probably say to himself, look, I mean, we can't slow that guy's, down. We can, put Jrue or someone on him. We can attempt to make his life more difficult, but Luka is still one of the top players in the world. He's still going to put up his numbers. But if we can, make Kyrie's life a little bit harder, limit him to 18, 20 points versus 30. If we can contain the Gaffords, the Washingtons, the Jones, those guys, then it doesn't really matter what Luka does because there are only so many games within a 7-game series that he can beat us by himself.
No, there's at least 4, and he can do it. He's that good. I don't think we should underestimate how good Luka is. Luka's playing at that level. Like the level where it's like this guy can just win the series on his own if he really wants to. Because Dallas' supporting cast has been shooting the ball well enough that it could happen. I think the big thing is so you can't get into double coverage. If you get into double coverage, what's even the point at that point? Maybe they could pull it off. I'm sure they'll try to pull it off just to mix things up. You can slow Luka down. I know Luka's whole thing is I want to slow down as much as possible. That's fine. I would rather him do that and cook you and you notice him cooking you than have the offense in a rhythm and having everybody staying hot, getting baskets off of cuts, getting defense in rotation so much that you're giving up wide open threes that are deflating. You want PJ Washington to go 2 for 9 from 3. You don't want him to go 4 for 8 and get a bunch of wide open ones and he's flexing on you. You're trying to really you're trying to tamper the excitement for everyone else around Luka. And the best way you can do that is just to stay in front of Luka and really make him work. And I know that Luka's stamina is pretty phenomenal. But the Celtics are probably going to make him work on defense. There are ways to get him to wear down a little bit over the course of a night. And we know he's very resilient. But the more work you can make him do earlier in the game, the less energy he's going to have that when he starts taking those step backs and pull ups late in the fourth quarter, he might start missing a little bit because his legs aren't under him all the way. So that's I feel like that's what you got to do. And it's going to be a lot of pain in that process. But the Celtics have enough dynamic talent that while Dallas's guys are dragging and they have their stamina is a little bit taxed, Boston will have people that are still fresh at the end of the game that can really handle all the offensive duties.
Yeah, it's a big reason why finishing off a lot of these series in 4 and 5 is a huge advantage for Boston. I mean, we all looked at Al Horford in the middle of the Cleveland series saying, I don't know, man, it might be a little bit past Al's bedtime or something like that. It just didn't feel right. He didn't look as spry. The legs underneath the jump shot weren't there. And then, he gets a long layoff and looks a lot better in the Indiana series, although defensively it wasn't great. Offensively, he was much, much better. Boston's ability to rest, Kaufman, we've talked about this, playing with your food versus getting things done. I think this is a team, and they've said it, throughout the post game press conferences and stuff throughout the week, that they've learned this is a little different for them the second time around, right? They've learned a little bit more about how to really compete in the playoffs. And I wonder if some of the lessons that they learned from the Warriors, I'll call it slightly collapsed there, but the Warriors, some of the mistakes they made Taking 6 games to beat the Atlanta Hawks, that was extremely frustrating. Having to play 7 games against Milwaukee and then another 7-game series with Miami. Like, this is a team that's definitely going to be well rested. And as we look towards Thursday, which feels like an eternity away here, Boston's going to at least play with the most rested legs they've played in a postseason run, and basically the entire time in the Jason and Jalen era, I think, right?
I would think so, right? I mean, you're talking about what, 10 days off, 9 days between games for this Celtics team, and, which we haven't touched on other than just ingest off the top with the commonality between the two teams. Kristaps Porzingis is coming back. I mean, I know like Joe hasn't come right out and said, yeah, he's playing game 1, but all signs point to him playing in game 1. And, Jared, I think that you just like we said, and we're not alone. Lots of people have said this, but we were, very vocal about it on this show throughout these playoffs so far that, if you needed Kristaps Porzingis to win you the Eastern Conference, if you needed him at all in these previous series, there was a problem. These were very winnable series without his part. Doesn't mean he doesn't make your life easier. He's a good player. I'm taking nothing away from him. It's just, against these previous matchups, he was a luxury. How much is he needed now against the Mavericks, especially given the amount of bigs they have on this team?
Yeah, this is the one where you need him. You need him to single-handedly take away the lob threat. Like, this is defensively the most important moment for his entire time with the Celtics, and he's very fortunate because if they were facing Denver and he had to defend the post up all night long, he might have gotten screwed. It might have been bad. Celtics might have lost. The big upper hand that the Celtics have here in this matchup, and why, as scary as this matchup might be for them, it might be the ideal matchup, is because Kristaps is uniquely qualified to take away a huge component of their offense. And I think he might be better at it than Rudy. Like, I think he might be better equipped to handle it than Rudy Gobert. Maybe not. I'm not really sure. We'll see how it plays out, presuming Kristaps comes back and he's good. But like, they need somebody that can just deter some of those lobs. And like the Celtics, they have the point of attack defenders that if Luka and Kyrie are working their way in there and KP is in that drop and they're waiting for that pocket to open up above to throw the alley-oop, they can make life uncomfortable. They can poke out the ball. Like, I think the Celtics can probably handle that action better than anybody else in the NBA can.
I guess my question, sticking with Porzingis and the bigs for a second, is, as much as their 3-point offense is going to be important, and as much as Porzingis' ability to protect the rim, especially on lobs, is going to be a factor here, Jared, I'm a little concerned about both of those guys in space against, the ball handlers on Dallas. I go back to the Rudy shot that Luka hit to finish the game, right? And I look at that, I'm like, well, if that's Porzingis and if that's Al Horford, like, I just see the same thing happening here, unless a double comes out of nowhere and they force Luka off the ball. How big of a concern is that for you heading into the series? Because if I have like cold sweats waking up in a nightmare, that's what I'm thinking about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's been very limited examples of KP switching late in games, and they did a little bit this year, and it didn't go.
DeJounte Murray stuff, the Atlanta games, where I had go.
Yep. And the thing that Porzingis did wrong, I think, in that scenario was that he was giving too much space, and he let Murray get to his spot. Like, Murray is automatic from that nail pull-up. And like, I never understand these bigs that let these really good mid-range scorers have enough space that they can drive to the spot. It's like, it doesn't matter if you can test him from his spot. He doesn't feel you there. He's taken that shot a million times in his life. He doesn't even, he can do it with his eyes closed. And so, you want, like, if you want Porzingis to get up on Doncic, and you also, the big thing that I think Gobert did really wrong is you need to read Doncic's feet. And his feet, oftentimes he'll be dribbling in the split stance. His feet never change. He can only go where his feet are pointing him. Like, you move on your feet, and players are always getting caught, even looking at like the belly button, looking at the shoulders and the eyes. It's like, you got to follow the guy's feet because he can only go where he's pointing towards. And Gobert completely turned himself around when Doncic hit him with the cross, but like, Doncic's feet were still in the same spot. He still was only really going one direction. And so I think Porzingis actually I don't think Porzingis can flip his hips as effectively, so I think he kind of has to stay down in his stance anyway. So he might be better equipped for those moments. And I mean, at least with Porzingis, it's like Porzingis is wide enough that you can't just like go all the way around him. So Doncic could use an elbow to get past him, but Irving maybe is the harder one because Irving's probably going to tie his shoes up a little bit and get him twisted and then get to his shot. So Porzingis probably can do an okay job in handling that Doncic switch, but if Doncic is getting those switches on him, they're going to do something. They're going to start doing some hybrid zone stuff to keep Porzingis on the back line and make sure that he doesn't get, stuck out there.
Quick break from today's show to tell you today's show is brought to you by GameTime. The NBA playoffs are here. I don't know about you guys. I am dying to get my hands on some tickets to any one of these playoff games for the Celtics. I would love to be inside TD Garden to experience the atmosphere. And with GameTime, it's never been easier or faster to get playoff tickets. And prices on GameTime app, they actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. And with last-minute killer deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and lowest price guaranteed, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can pick out any game you want. It doesn't matter. You find the game, they have tickets for you, okay? No question about it. And you can even customize your spot, look for some inspiration from GameTime. Let's say like, hey, I want to have this view, but that's what I'm really looking for. You can limit it. You can narrow your focus down to zone deals. You can buy flash deals. Or you can view from your seat and lowest price guaranteed every single time. They have last minute deals. You can save to 60% off buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. It's not just NBA. I know we're an NBA podcast, but you can get, let's say, Sebastian Maniscalco's coming around. You want to see that guy in concert. He's hilarious. I look into it. And you can save even more when you choose a section like GameTime. Choose the seats for you with some sweet zone deals. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. The redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Some of the bigger picture stuff, and we can go back to the series itself, but I think this is where I'm going with this is very relevant to the series in terms of dictating how it's going to go. There have been, I don't need to tell you guys or our listeners, but just for the sake of presenting it, there's been a lot of stupid out there, national and local, more so than usual because the elevated stage and NBA finals and everything like that. A lot of mouth breathers that just it's amazing what is coming out of their mouths with respect to this team, and there's a level of disrespect, whether it's talking about, I don't care about criticizing the path. Like, you play the games on your schedule, right? You play the teams that are in front of you. You can't shape it up any differently. This is how the bracket formed, and you are the best team. You're the number one seed in the entire NBA. If guys keep getting hurt in front of you, then so be it. Luka goes down and people want to make an excuse out of that, so be it. All that really matters here is banner 18, obviously. But we are now at a point where we are hearing, nationally, like, was Jason Tatum happy enough for Jaylen Brown when he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP? We are hearing locally the already like jumping ahead to, if God forbid the Celtics lose this series, who goes? Is Mazzulla canned? Is that your reason that you need to separate the Jays? It's all of the everything. What I am wondering, though, this is the type of thing that I do think about, that I think could impact things on the floor. I feel like we have seen, and Evan and I have talked a lot about this, Jared. I think we have seen Tatum hasn't been perfect. Don't get me wrong. He certainly could be shooting better, especially from distance. But I feel like we have seen a really solid version of Tatum this postseason, where he's not playing quite the same way that he has in the past. Now, yes, he is still leading the team in all the major categories: points, rebounds, assists per game. His turnovers, which I think does not get enough attention, are way down compared to most of his postseason averages in the past. I mean, he's turning the ball over at a much lower rate than basically every year other than his rookie year, when he went on that long run of almost 20 games. But while he has said repeatedly that the number one thing is banner 18. Like if I want to truly be a Celtic, make my name as a Celtic, get my number up in the rafters, all of that, I need to win a title. He has said, and I do believe feels all of the right things. If the media, be it local or national, and I do think he pays attention to it to some degree, is basically daring him to take over this series and make it him against Luka. Who's the face of the NBA? You know, is he going to put Brown in his shadow and go out there and win this thing himself? Are we going to see Tatum play a different version at all in this series of what we have seen the past 3 rounds that has obviously worked so well for this team?
I don't see why not. It's what's so interesting about this, right, is that the Celtics have stuck to their script and to their principles the entire year. And well, one of the things that could be a little concerning is that the playoffs have been so easy for them that they haven't had to have their identity tested, like pretty much at all. Like a few here or there. Indiana series is really tough, but they still won all those games. And they also kind of like, they came from behind and really exemplified their identity to win all those games. So they really held firm. And by the way, I think we should contextualize my answer in that the ESPN segment about him not being happy for Jalen, where they freeze frame and show him smiling, was just like
And
just
clapping.
like absolutely BS. Like kind of one of the more ridiculous things I think I've ever seen. And so, like they're all on the same page. And like I did an interview with JT earlier this year where he talked about both like how he really relies on Jalen to allow him to run his game, and how Jalen is kind of the one that often will put his stamp on the game right away and allow JT to kind of find his rhythm over the course of the game. Like he relies on that. A big thing he said was that he knows that literally nothing besides winning is going to matter at this point, and that he's been shooting like 25% from 3 this whole postseason run, and then still statistically has been at his best in like pretty much every single measure anyway. And anyone watching could see his defense is taking another level. His rebounding's been great. Playmaking's been phenomenal for a wing. Like he's playing at an elite level, and he's playing as good, if not the best basketball he's ever played his entire career, except that he's missing a lot of wide open threes. And that obviously matters, right? It definitely matters. But Tatum is still on the aggregate impacting at a higher level than he ever has before because he's doing so much else better. And so I just don't see how I can't imagine him getting in a pissing contest that's going to really define the series. There might be a moment where he goes shot for shot with Luka or Kyrie. And I think we've seen Jalen do that in the playoffs. Like that's part of being a star. They're going to do stuff like that. And that's a good thing. I think it's fine as long as it doesn't tank the entire rhythm of the team. And I think Tatum and Brown have been really good this year at making sure that if they get into a little bit of those star for star pissing contest things, they don't let it disrupt both their own effort on the other end and their commitment to running the offense. And so it hasn't really hurt the team this year. So I don't see Jason doing it. It doesn't line up with everything that he's been about for the last year or two.
And that's the secret sauce of this year. Like it's the sacrifice and the commitment from everyone. We make the highlight all year round of, oh yeah, Al Horford, he just said, yeah, I'm coming off the bench with this crew. At first it was a lot made of Jrue Holiday sacrificing the most of everyone because he's the, kind of been there, done that, and he has the most malleable game. And I would argue that the Jalen and Jason sacrifices have come a little bit later in the season as they figure out exactly how to make this machine move. And I agree with Weiss on that. I think it'd be a little weird if they got out of their rhythm, again, in spurts, sure, if they want, if Jalen's feeling it, of course, let him keep going. I think a lot of what happened in game 2 against Indiana was just get out of the way and let Jalen go to work. He's on a heater. I think the 40th point was an exclamation of that, where he just, was like, all right, I'll take one shot at 40, see if it works. And it was an absolutely, kind of a crazy shot to go in for 3, but it went in. This team understands, I think, a little bit better that they're gonna win games by, having good team play on both ends of the floor. I think it's actually more important that they realize at the end of games to really tighten the screws defensively if they really wanted to end Indiana. I mean, the last 2 games where the last 3 minutes and 50 seconds, they went like a 15-4 run in back-to-back games, and then like the last 3 minutes and 50 seconds of game 4, Indiana didn't score a single point, which was really impressive. Like, this is a team that understands that it takes a lot of guys. It takes all five to win some of these close games. And that's what I'm thankful for at the end of the day, Kaufman. Is like, this is a team that's matured, right? We talk about big picture overall goals on this show all the time. The biggest thing that I think that stands out to me is the maturity of this team as we've watched them throughout all these years make dumb mistakes. They might make some during games that drive me nuts, but at the end of the game, they seem to tighten up when it really matters. And again, the tests haven't been that hard yet, although I'd say Indiana was pretty tough. But like when we look at big picture, because I know you love going big picture, it just seems like this is if any of these teams are going to make over the hump, the most mature version of this team is going to do it.
I do think, and again, we could circle back to the series matchups, X factors, any of that stuff that we want to while we're chatting here. But one of the bigger picture narratives, if you will, surrounding this thing, both on and especially off the floor, obviously, is that Kyrie Irving is on the other side. And I really would have thought, that one, I never even thought this was a possibility, just because I didn't hold the Mavericks in that esteem. I always felt it was, a Boston-Denver collision course. We see the Nuggets knocked off by Minnesota. Well, fine, then it's going to be the Timberwolves. I never really entertained the idea of it being the Mavericks in this series. And I do think that, I guess we'll see, proofs in the pudding, but I do think that works out well for the Celtics. And again, the favorable path thing and them being a 5 seed. I think the lowest seed to ever win it was a 6, the Rockets back in 95, whatever it was. But I don't know, as someone who probably made a bigger deal out of like Kyrie Irving resentment on social media than most other people for a long time, really throughout his entire Brooklyn tenure. And, now there's been nothing interesting about his time in Dallas in terms of him making waves. So I haven't tweeted about it in a while. I thought I'd be kind of in my feelings about this, Jared. And I don't care. Like, yeah, I mean, the idea of them losing this series and him winning is horrific, but it's really not about him. It's them, squandering an opportunity where they are heavily favored, where they should win banner 18. I know people want to make a big deal out of him coming back, and the fans are certainly going to boo him mercilessly, and there'll be the whole recounting of videos of him stomping the Lucky logo at center court and all of that stuff. But I don't know. I don't think he's going to do anything at all to play into it. I hope the fans, give him a hard time, boo him, have fun, keep it clean, don't cross the line, but keep it within the bounds of just fan, like, whatever. That's great, do that. But I don't think Kyrie's going to give it back as he has in the past. And so do you feel like the Kyrie Irving element of this series is going to go away pretty quickly?
No. No, because Friday night I was walking by Fenway Park on the way to a show, and people were just randomly breaking out into "fuck Kyrie" chants. Like,
I was just there
at a
last
Red
night, and they were
Sox game.
selling Kyrie sucks t-shirts.
Yeah, it's like, I saw a bunch of those. It's ridiculous. People, and it's kind of like back in the day, you'd be at a Celtics game and people would start chanting "Yankees suck." Like,
Right.
Bostonians just love saying people suck, and so I think there's going to be a really disturbing amount of vitriol initially, and I expect that Kyrie is probably going. When Kyrie came to Boston in March, it was revelatory to see how at peace he was and how he was handling everything. It was like, where was this all this time? And I think he's let go a lot of anger, which, good for him, because as much as people want to talk about Boston being mad at him, like, he also has lots of reasons. Like, he got a lot of, abuse. He got racial abuse. He had water bottles thrown at him. Like, he as much as like it was fair for him to be villainized in Boston, there were fans that went way over the line. And when you're in his position, it's like, are you really gonna say to yourself, well, there's only a few bad eggs, so I can't be mad at everybody? It's like, you're gonna get whatever you experience. And I don't think Kyrie's sitting there listening to all the different nuanced conversations about his relationship with Boston. He experiences it from his perspective, which probably was pretty awful, and that's how it feels for him. And so good on him that he was able to grow out of it, even if he was certainly the reason for a lot of it happening, but he also got a lot of stuff he didn't deserve. And so I think he's probably going to try to make himself not the story, keep focus on his team winning, make it about the team. It seems like he has grown and matured in a lot of ways about just like not making it about himself anymore. And that was kind of the story with him in Boston, whether it was with his teammates or the staff or the fan base. It was a lot of like, I'm a champion. I can show you guys how to do stuff. And it didn't work. And I think, frankly, he failed at it in a lot of ways. And coming into Dallas, knowing it's Luka's team, wanting to revive his career, he's done everything right. And now he's actually a pretty enjoyable and sympathetic character, which is great. Like I don't want villains. I mean, I'm not a fan, so it's like I don't want anyone to be hated. But like I think it hopefully will just be a nice closure, full circle moment. And if he can compose himself well, and then the fans can respond to that, it probably will allow things to dissipate. But there's obviously there's going to be the people walking down the street yelling, Kyrie sucks. And those people they just want to watch the world burn. And if it wasn't Kyrie, it would probably be somebody else.
Well, I think also too, and this is a credit to him. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him about this, obviously, but I would think that in terms of one's internal growth, and it's a difficult pill to swallow, but obviously, if you come out on the other side of it with the right mindset, it like you said, you can let go of a lot of stuff. It can be really relieving. When the Celtics acquired him, and maybe this was a miscalculation on the part of Danny Ainge, or maybe it just didn't work. This was a guy who was a number 2 that wanted to get out of LeBron's shadow, that wanted to be a number 1, wanted to be the guy. Boston was the first opportunity to do that. It went south. He was, it was a 1A, 1B situation in Brooklyn when he teamed up with Kevin Durant. Again, didn't work. And like you said, goes to Luka's team, and he's firmly in that number 2 spot again, and he has thrived. I think he's just someone where it works out to where he is, still obviously a hell of a player, but a complementary player, as opposed to, this is my team, I'm the leader.
Yeah, that's how it has to be. He's never been good enough to be the number 1 guy on a winning team. The reason for that is, one, defensively. His defense has gotten better for sure, but he wasn't at that level defensively. And then his playmaking style is it's funny because now he plays next to Luka, who also plays extremely slow, but like Kyrie's always wasted a lot of energy trying to shake people instead of being very direct and very efficient. And I think you need a level of that to really succeed. And so, because of that, and because he wasn't quite like a Steph level sprinting shooter at that level, but he's still really good, he just never was quite at that level. But, I think you could say the same thing about Damian Lillard. Like Damian, if you put Kyrie on those Blazers team, I think Kyrie would have had a pretty comparable level of output. And I think he's, pretty much that level of player as well, even if he plays a little bit differently. And just like, if you want to be the top team, you need a guy who either is so big that he can just score at will on the inside and get to the line at will, which is what Luka can do, or someone who also makes a major impact on defense, which is what Tatum and like Giannis can do. And so Kyrie's just in the perfect situation.
Yeah, thriving for sure. But he's like, it's funny to me that it's one of the things I don't really care about is Kyrie coming back to Boston. It's more about how is Boston going to stop him versus his past relationship with the city. It almost like, because the on-court stuff to me at this point, like let's be honest here. This entire season has been all about who cares what Boston does if they don't make the finals. Like, who, it doesn't really matter. Well, now that they're here in the finals, I don't really care about any of the stuff that's off court at all. And it's more just about focusing on these 2 teams. And so for Kyrie, I wonder if that's like maybe a beneficial thing for him. I know most people are going to try. And then like, obviously, you have all these talking heads that are going to make stories out of this. Like if you think the stories were bad last week, we still have 3 more days to kill, boys. Like it's going to get brutal.
2 weeks between, the championship games and the AFC, NFC to the Super Bowl is hard.
Yeah.
And just wait for media day. It's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
And
Kyrie has, I saw Grandy tweet this the other day, and I don't expect this to continue. I mean, it would literally have to be a sweep for it to continue. But Kyrie has lost his last 10 matchups with the Celtics going back a few years. So that's an impressive number.
Yeah. At least he's going to play this time.
Right.
Fair. But I find the Kyrie history stuff like just doesn't move the needle for me at all. I'm way more concerned about, just the matchup problems that Kyrie creates, and him and Luka creating devastating 1-2 punches. And like, what is Boston going to do if those 2 guys run pick and roll? Is it going to be, Derek White on Luka? I'm way more concerned about that stuff, because at this point, like, I've been trying to do this. I don't know if Jared, because you have a different perspective on this than I do for sure. But like I have taken the entire season of like every little checkpoint matters. All these things matter. Everybody that's trying to fast forward to the finals, like you can lose me on that. Like I'm going to enjoy this season now that this is the last 4 to 7 games that we're going to watch for a long time. Like I am enjoying all the minutia of everything involved with this series. So like the Kyrie stuff doesn't register with me. And Kaufman, I want to commend you on your growth because like
Thank you.
you are by far the biggest Kyrie hater that I know by a
I can't think of anyone in recent NBA history I have liked less as a person. Just that, I mean, he's a hell of a player, but I just detest him as an individual. So yeah, I think I am growing.
I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed for you. And I don't know. I don't like the because it's going to take this series. Like we've kind of danced around this a little bit. I think we all anticipate this being a pretty excellent finals, right? I don't think it's going to be last year where Denver just has their way with Miami the entire time, and everybody's Denver's going to win this thing. I think this is going to be this is a fascinating matchup. Kaufman, you know me. I was in on Dallas after watching a lot of the OKC games. I'm like, wow, this team really like offensively is way better than I expected and way better than I
you thought they were going to beat the Timberwolves. You were on that early.
I could not be more impressed with how polished Derek Lively is for a rookie and a guy that can really make a lot of interesting passes for someone who has not played a lot of playoff games, a lot of basketball in general. I think Dallas defensively does a lot of very interesting things to force the direction of other opposing offenses. Like I am so pumped for this final. So it's going to be a real challenge for both of these teams. And anything that doesn't have to do with actual basketball, I just don't give a shit about. And Kaufman, you've come such a long way, buddy. Fantastic job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Although, let me pull it back because there is an itch I want to scratch, which is not, I don't want to spend much. I'm going to take this in a direction so that we don't go down the other road where I don't want to waste time. So there are certain people in the Boston market, media people, be it on TV, radio, print, whatever, who are it's really bothering me, who are making it a point to celebrate Jrue Holiday's success by really hammering the fact that these are all the reasons XYZ why you never could have won with Marcus Smart. And I don't know why we need to put one guy down in order to lift another guy up. I don't know why we can't just say like Marcus Smart was a solid Celtic for about a decade and they didn't get over the hump. He's gone. And yeah, Jrue Holiday is amazing. I will be I will readily admit, Jared, I thought they were going to miss Marcus Smart. They haven't at all. Not at all. And Jrue Holiday has been incredible. I'm not sure. I know on this show we have not spoken enough about Jrue Holiday because we barely mentioned him other than is he going to be on Luka? I think the way that like he had a good regular season, wasn't amazing. It was a good regular season. I think in many ways he was kind of, I think anyway, I'm just assuming sort of preserving himself for this point because he is a champion. He's won with Milwaukee. He knows what it takes. And he has had some excellent games here in the playoffs that, again, people want to say, you never would have gotten that out of Marcus Smart. Who gives a crap? Leave it in the past. He's not here. He's gone. Jrue Holiday has been exceptional for this team. He has been exactly what they have needed here in this postseason run, especially. And I think it has, helped obviously mitigate the loss of Kristaps Porzingis, as well as, Al Horford having some bigger games than maybe one would expect him to have at this point in the season, given his age and all of that. But now going forward, again, the fact that he has been here and he has done it. He's the only guy on this roster that has. What does Jrue Holiday's presence on and off the floor mean for this finals?
I mean, it's crucial, right? On the floor, it's just like you got a guy that you can confidently put on one of the best players in the world. And I think he's probably the best matchup for Luka that's out there. Like everybody was excited to see what Jaden McDaniels could do because he's such an elite defender, and Luka did pretty well in that matchup. And Holiday is just like McDaniels is great, but he's young. Holiday has been an elite defender for a very long time, and the mental aspect of the game, which Luka challenges you in a way that very few players in NBA history have. Holiday is emotionally, physically, cognitively equipped to handle it. And so that's where it gets big first and foremost. And then obviously he's just such a good player in the seams on offense, spacing out. If they're able to pull Dallas's centers out, if he can like get a cross match on Kyrie, he can hammer Kyrie in the post. Like he can be, and maybe even get Kyrie in foul trouble. Like he's going to be an important part of a lot of the things that they're trying to do. And then, going back to the Marcus Smart thing, I mean, I never understand people who are like, we shouldn't be talking about this. It's like people just talk about whatever they're feeling, whatever. It's always funny when politicians are like, at a time like this, we shouldn't be worrying about this. It's like, it's always a time like this. You should always be worrying about whatever you're worried about. And so, like, I don't, did anyone think Jrue Holiday and Marcus Smart were like this, that Jrue wasn't better than Marcus Smart? Like, Jrue Holiday has always been essentially the same player as Marcus Smart, but a little bit better as a scorer and a little bit better as a shooter. Well, good amount better as a shooter, and then like a slightly different style on defense, but still significantly impactful. Like they're like the two most similar players to each other out there, and so they've gotten a pretty similar experience from Jrue. Jrue also is like a risky guy, but he's not quite as risky as Marcus was. He doesn't relish in doing the crazy stuff as much. He's a little bit more kind of like steady and patient. And so I when they traded Smart for Porzingis, yeah, I was like, this is the heart and soul getting traded away. And he was the glue and the energy and the anger that this team needed. And it's a team that's led by a bunch of guys who are just emotionally a little bit passive. They're not feisty, angry, aggressive players. That's not how they play. And you needed Smart, and and even Grant Williams, as many issues as he had, as much as Joe didn't want to play him, like they needed his aggression and confidence at times. And so they were losing that, and they got it back with Jrue. So if people knew when the Porzingis trade was happening, they were going to get Jrue Holiday. It already was a great trade, but it would have been like it would have looked at it as the greatest trade in NBA history at that point. One of them. And so they got exactly what they wanted and what they needed out of Jrue, and he stepped it up in the postseason. And I think the thing that's been really interesting about Jrue is a lot of the criticism for making the deal for him was that when he gets to the postseason, he gets in over his depth and he struggles offensively. And I remember saying at the time, well, yeah, because he was like the second option on the team, and the first option couldn't shoot the ball. So it's like that was like he's not going to be that guy in Boston. He's not going to have to do much on offense. So with the Celtics, all he does is space the floor, run in transition, and then they've had him run a little bit of point guard lately, and he's like good at it, and everyone's shocked by it. Like, no, this is what happens when you have a really good player being willing to take a downgrade in usage, and then when you actually have to use him, he's only doing stuff that's like relatively easy for him. So that's why he's been so good, and that's why all these guys are so good, is because they don't really have to get stretched too thin.
You want to end this on a little bit of a lighter note here, Kaufman?
Sure.
Do we all believe that Joe Mazzulla has watched every finals game from now until 1990, or do you think he was lying about that? Because I thought that was an incredible story to come out with. Yeah, I've watched every finals game from last year to like early 90s, and here's what everybody does to win. Now, I love that he came out and has been doing some research and talked about it. I just thought that was pretty. It's a lot of basketball, Jared. It's a lot of basketball.
So one thing I'll say is right before he was asked about, I think Jay asked, it was a great question. Joe mentioned to me while we were walking up there, very randomly just mentioned like a single defensive decision that Charles Barkley made in the 93 finals. And so it was really funny that he got asked about that and said that. He like literally just kind of, I talked like about some soccer thing with him, and he brought that up. It's like, oh, that's what championships are made of. It's those little decisions. And so, yeah, so he definitely watched a lot of finals games. That's for sure. No question about that.
I love it. I love that. A guy's knee deep in tape, trying to figure out every edge you could possibly get, and is looking through history to find it.
He's got a lot of time.
I love him. See, Kaufman, we're a very pro Joe Mazzulla podcast. When he says stuff like that, like, how do you not love that guy? And you know what I mean? Like, come on.
I mean, put that on social media. You'll get a whole list of reasons why not to love it.
Dumb. Don't get me started.
So ultimately, I mean, look, Ev and I are probably going to have another show even before the finals start, given this 3-month layoff before we have to wake people up and remind them that basketball is still happening, let alone the most important basketball of the year. But why not get into prediction time a little bit? I mean, I'm not. Look, we all believe this is going to be a challenging series. We've said that. Do we also all believe that it's going to end in a parade in Boston?
Yeah, Yeah, I would pick Celtics in 7.
I think 6. I like it in 6.
Yeah, I don't like it to go 7. That would stress me out too much. I'm not in favor of that. In fact, I would probably leap into the worst case scenario part of my brain if it goes 7. So yeah, I think 6. I'm inclined to believe 6, just like Ev. Although if we're talking about this from a gambling perspective, folks, I think it's worth a sprinkle if you're doing correct score. Worth a sprinkle on Celtics in 5, Celtics in 6, both of them. And definitely hit that Celtics -1.5 on the game spread to take care of it in 6 or fewer. And you can get that, big plus money on the correct score. But the -1.5, you can get pretty close to even money. I think -110. So yeah, I like it. I don't want to get ahead of myself, even though I feel like we've been doing that for the entire season, definitely the entire postseason. But I guess now is the time to do it. This is the round, and it's going to be fun. Just eager for the games to start back up again. And, good to see Kristaps Porzingis back out there when he gets there. And just hopefully, and I say this on both sides, the series that we've had so far. And I know the most important thing is the Celtics win, bottom line, especially if you're fans of this podcast. I know you agree. But we've seen no Jimmy Butler. We've seen, a banged up and then absent Donovan Mitchell, and same story with Tyrese Halliburton. I'm hoping everyone stays healthy on the Mavericks side. Let's get a good, hard fought, competitive series that everyone is present for, that Boston comes out on top. I think that would be a lot of fun, a nice way to take us into almost summer league, actually. Jared's life really is not slowing down anytime soon. But Jared Weiss from The Athletic, make sure he's got a big story dropping as well. Probably depending on when you listen to this, it might be minutes later, but it's dropping on Monday, correct?
Yes.
All right, so make sure you check
Stay
that out.
looking out for that.
Yeah, keep an eye out on that. Get them on Twitter, all of that fun stuff. Rate, review, most importantly, subscribe to this podcast, Celtics Beat, wherever you get your podcasts. For Jared, for Evan, I am Adam again. In all likelihood, we'll be back with you before the finals even come around on Thursday at the Garden for Game 1. But Celtics Mavs, it's coming, folks. The NBA Finals, they are here.